Having us.
Thank you for having us.
You were in Malaya recently, right?
I was. I was there last week, I think. Yeah, I stayed in the Puri Hotel in what used to be Heron Street, and met Bert for the first time. I'd been a Facebook contact of his for some time, but we hadn't had a chance to meet before. And I had a fascinating time because he introduced me to the guy who runs number 8.
Colin.
Yeah, Colin. And then he took me to the Baba Nonya Heritage Museum, and we met the girl who runs that.
Melissa.
And we ended up at the home of the man who insists that his home is not a museum.
Sarge.
The Sarge, yes.
Yes, Sarge.
Fascinating. So really a fascinating afternoon. Yeah. Met 3 icons of Malacca.
But there was another guy with you, right?
Yeah, well, Jason Wordy. Jason comes from Hong Kong, and he loves Malaysia, and he does heritage walks in Hong Kong. He takes Hong Kong residents to historic sites that they don't know enough about, because he's very clued up on his history. And he gives them the history. He's got a fantastic photographic memory, so he can remember names and dates, and he can take them around the cemeteries and practically give the history of everyone who's buried there. Quite a character. Yeah. And he hadn't been to Malacca since, I think about 93 was the last time he came. So we agreed that we would meet in Malacca. He came up from Singapore on the train, and we stayed at the Puri Hotel. Unfortunately, we had to cut the visit short because Musley, the guy from the UOB, had come down with us. He loves Malacca too, but he had to get back for some bank business, so we actually only ended up with just one night together in Malacca. But we had that fascinating afternoon with the trio, the heritage trio. And then we went to Carcosa the following evening in the Lake Garden. And I remembered being there in 1962 when they filmed The Seventh Dawn. Seventh Dawn. Classic Malaysian movie, Malayan movie as it then was. With William Holden, Susanna York, and
there's a scene at the really.
There is, yes. It was such a weird mix-up of characters, because the book was based on Michael Keown's Durian Tree, an Australian writer, and it's about a character who's ostensibly Chin Peng, running the anti-guerrilla campaign, and after the war getting impatient with the British for not handing Malaya immediately back to the population. He goes back into the jungle and begins the emergency, of course.
This on which side?
Well, he's fighting the British. I mean, he starts the emergency, yeah.
All right.
Having fought the Japanese for the British, with the help of the British, because one of his colleagues in the jungle was a chap called Spencer Chapman, who I also met.
These are all Englishmen?
Spencer Chapman was, yes. But in the novel, Durian Tree, Michael Keown turns them into an Australian. And they couldn't find it was a Hollywood movie. So they translated the Australian into an American, played by William Holden. And then they They got Capucine, who's a French actress, to play an Anglo-Indian school teacher. And the funniest piece of miscasting of all was getting Tetsuro Tamba, who's a Japanese actor, to play the Chinese guerrilla leader who's fighting the
Can I get a
Japanese.
Chinese actor?
That's what we all wondered. So we had this ridiculous scene right at the start of the movie. I was with the production because I was attached from the Malay Mail. I was our man on the film set. They had this ridiculous scene where the Japanese troops are surrendering to the British who are returning to the country, and to Chin Peng. Ing is the name in the film. And the Japanese commander hands his sword of surrender to the Chinese guerrilla leader played by a Japanese actor. The guy who's playing the Japanese commander surrendering the sword was a Chinese businessman who had earned a reputation for funding the guerrilla activities against the Japanese during the war. He'd helped Chin Peng to actually fight the Japanese. So you have this weird role reversal situation. The only person in character was Susanna York. She plays the High Commissioner's daughter.
She was young then.
She was young then, yes. I met her years later in Hong Kong, and we were reminiscing about this ridiculous movie. I have the film in a digital format, and I was going through it again just to remind myself of particularly the Carcosa scenes, where I was there with them when I don't know how it came to be, but Carcosa was the residence of the British High Commissioner. And somehow he had unwittingly lent the residence for the filming of this particular sequence, where the fictional High Commissioner, who's Susanna York's father, has to meet a deputation of cyclists protesting against the ban on cycling. Cyclists were banned during the emergency, in the film anyway, for possibly carrying supply materials to the terrorists. And of course this cripples long before the days when everyone owned a motor car or a motorcycle, people were traveling by cycle. So KL came to a halt because of this law. And the High Commissioner promises to repeal the law, and Capucine greets him as the best bit of news, the best hope that Malaya has so far of actually getting some satisfactory solution to their problems. But then a bomb is thrown, a grenade is thrown into the ballroom at Carcosa, and William Holden flings himself at Susanna York to save her from the debris, and a lot of people are killed and wounded. It was quite cleverly filmed because, of course, they couldn't cause any real damage to the ballroom. So they did it with smoke and mirrors, in the middle of a rather attractive Kari Lampu dance done by a local Malay dance team. It's a fascinating film if you can ever get hold of it. It's available on Amazon.com. But it's one of the few films that were actually about the emergency, filmed in Malaya. Planter's Wife with Jack Hawkins and Claudette Colbert had been filmed back in the 50s, actually 49, during the emergency. And some of the scenes were shot in Malaya, but the majority of them were shot at Elstree Studios in London. Whereas the Seventh Dawn was almost entirely shot here. Some scenes were shot in Fort Dixon, some in Cameron Highlands. It's a nice little reminder of what Malaya looked like in those days.
How was the film and the in reality, were they similar?
It was based quite closely on real events. I mean, McGillivray was the man who had just retired as British High Commissioner. And he'd succeeded General Templer, of course, who was the tiger of Malaya, the man who effectively ended the emergency. It ended officially in 1960. I was at the celebrations on the Padang when they had a march past to declare the emergency officially over. And I actually got to meet Templer because he was invited back for the celebrations, and I had a little drive around KL, and of course KL was changing even in those days. Quite a character.
When was he shot?
He retired, I think in 1954 or 55. I think.
He retired?
From Malaya, yes. Because by that time the emergency was sufficiently under control for Templer to say, you know, I think I've done my job. My successor can take over and take it from there. And of course, by 1960, so many white areas had been replaced in the former black areas that they could claim the emergency was over, except it wasn't on the Betong salient, on the Thai-Malaysian border.
Oh, some pockets of it in Pahang.
There were a few, yeah.
And even the south.
Yes.
I remember we were staying beside a British military officer, and they were doing the surveillance work and intelligence work.
Right.
It wasn't really about it.
Right. Well, I remember Robert Thompson was the last British Secretary for Defence in 1960, and I knew that the emergency really wasn't over. It was still festering on in little areas like the ones you mentioned, particularly the Betong Stadium. So I went to Thompson and asked him if he could arrange for me to be attached to the Commonwealth troops on the border. And he did. He gave me entree to various Commonwealth units, Australians and Brits, and Malay police field force operating on the Thai side of the border. The Thais wouldn't allow military units in, but they would allow police in.
Wow. But were you not afraid for your life, or
Yeah, I was
getting
afraid.
shot? Huh? Were you
I
shot
could wear
at?
a uniform again and carry a rifle.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I have.
Were you
I've
shot
got
at?
all in photograph. No, there was one occasion when we thought we were being ambushed because there was a tree across the road, somewhere near Sadao. And we were on our way to the Malay police field force camp, and suddenly there was this tree across the road. But it was an accident. It was not a.
Oh, okay.
But the Malay in charge of this unit was grumbling about the Thais, saying, very well impossible to work with them, they make so much noise. They're determined to let the terrorists know we're coming, so they're whistling at the top of their voice. Any chance of surprise is gone. Oh, it was quite a character. Yeah, and I used to drop money from the back end of a tiger moth.
And the tiger?
the
Okay.
KL Flying Club
Oh.
had a contract with tin mines and rubber estates to deliver the wages to the workers every month, because deliveries by road were being ambushed by the guerrillas. So the safest way was to deliver by air. And the Flying Club,
Landing there.
no, just dropping money bags
How many we take it?
onto football fields. It was fun. I would sit in the back cockpit with a pilot in front and a voice tube. You know, we didn't have radio communication. And he'd brief me before we take off. He'd say, "I put my right hand out," which means you're supposed to hold the bag, the money bag. But don't let go of it until I drop my hand. And otherwise,
Holding it out in the wind and everything.
yeah. But he had to judge the trajectory, because any object falling from an aircraft, come on in, would drop at the same speed as the aircraft, which is why bombers always deliver their payloads. Hi Eileen, we've got the crew from the heritage people.
Hello.
Hi Rob. Do you think you can get? You'll probably have to hit the road straight away, because I think he's waiting for you.
Oh, hi, sir.
Faisal. You just call him down. You've got to get him to Rawan Station.
I've read somewhere that you were British Indian.
I was Anglo-Indian. I was born in India.
No, I was born in India.
My mother's Eurasian. My father's British. I was a railway child.
Railway child.
The Anglo-Indians ran the railways in India. And we had these little railway communities scattered around the country. And we were always on the move. We were gypsy-like existence,
I see.
constantly posted
Well,
from one.
not attached with the British Army.
No.
It's just
Often
railway.
we were based next to British Army encampments, with sometimes comic results. I remember my grandfather was station master at Aligarh near Delhi, and he'd wait to set this rusty old station clock until he heard the cannon on the hill, the military cannon, being fired for the hour. You know, it used to fire a cannon.
For every hour. On the hour.
It was a noonday exercise. So he would then go and reset the station clock, which was running about 10 minutes slow. And after he'd gone about his duties, the commandant from the military camp would come down on his horse, check his watch with the station clock, and go back up the hill. So of course they were getting progressively out of sync with the rest of the world,
I see.
losing 10 minutes a day.
Is there a lot of Anglo-Indians over here in Malaysia?
There were when I arrived, yes. When I was with the Malay Mail in KL, there was quite a big Eurasian community. There probably still is, I don't know, but I met quite a few of them. We used to have dances and gatherings. I don't know if the tradition survives, because of course I've lost touch. I was away for so long. And when you think of it, most of the residents of Malacca are Eurasian in one way or another, with Portuguese blood and maybe Dutch blood, Baba Nonya.
I know of, or I knew of a gentleman, he was born in India. He claims to be Welsh Indian.
Right.
The family's from Wales. So he was born in India. Father was in the military. Was born in 1925. And he settled here. He passed away about 2 years ago. But he was in the merchant navy. And came to Johor and settled there, and he was in the palm oil business to that plantation, planter.
Of course, being Welsh was a big asset for Anglo-Indians because people claim that Anglo-Indians always sing with a sort of Welsh sing-song type of voice.
Oh, okay. It sounds similar.
Let's see what they mean by that.
What?
The
Welsh.
speech pattern.
Yeah, it's very
speech
similar.
pattern.
Very similar. Yeah.